Welcome back to the show, everyone. It's DinaKalmeta here, and for today's news, we have a lot to get caught up on. For instance, we're going to talk about how Taiwan is on high alert due to Chinese military exercises encircling their island. And then over in North Korea, well, he's revealed his new nuclear submarine, and he's saying that this thing can withstand a nuclear strike. And then, of course, we cannot forget about Ukraine and Russia. While President Zelensky and President Trump were talking peace and safety here in the United States, over in Russia, one of Putin's residencies was allegedly attacked, and now they're calling for retaliation. And then, of course, we have Israel, Iran, and the United States. So certainly a lot to get caught up on. Let's dive in. The South China Morning Post reveals a chilling report from CCTV. The Chinese military has simulated battles near Mexico, Cuba, and Taiwan. Let that sink in. They aren't just drilling for a regional conflict in the South China Sea. They are simulating operations off the coast of the United States. By using locations like Mexico and Cuba in their war games, Beijing is signaling that any war over Taiwan will not stay in Asia. It's also been reported that Taiwan's armed forces are on high alert after China launched new military drills encircling the island. China launched the extensive drills dubbed Justice Mission 2025 around Taiwan, involving the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Officials from the PLA claim to have created a shield of justice around 5 major ports through the drills. They released a map showing the blockades, made up of PLA personnel and even rocket forces completely surrounding Taiwan. The Chinese president had ordered the simulated attacks on separatist forces in Taiwan just days after the island was bolstered by an $8.2 billion U.S. arms boost. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense claimed at least 28 Coast Guard and naval vessels were detected inside Taiwan's response area during the drills. 4 Chinese amphibious assault ships in formation operating in the Western Pacific were also spotted by the Coast Guard. Another 89 aircraft were also called in, flying over the same region, marking the largest number of military aircraft detected in over a year. In the meantime, Russia has stated that they will support Beijing over Taiwan. In an interview with TASS published on Sunday, Lavrov stated that Russia believes that the Taiwan problem is an internal problem of China and that Beijing has every right to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Sun has published chilling images of Kim Jong-un inspecting a huge new nuclear-powered submarine. Intelligence suggests this vessel is approximately 8,700 tons. To put that in perspective, this is a monster of a boat, designed not just for coastal defense, but for deep water aggression. This isn't a diesel sub that has to surface for air every few days. A nuclear reactor means it can stay submerged for months, lurking off the coast of California or even Hawaii, completely silent, completely undetected. The images show vertical launch tubes. These are for submarine-launched ballistic missiles. This is what military strategists call a second strike capability. Even if North Korea was wiped off the map, this sub survives in the deep to launch a retaliatory nuclear strike. And look at the reaction. The NPR has confirmed that a nuclear submarine arms race has erupted. South Korea is now scrambling to counter this, and the U.S. is deepening cooperation with South Korea. The Pacific is becoming a pressure cooker. We are witnessing the fulfillment of rumors of war, where every nation is arming itself to the teeth. Insider paper confirms that Kim Jong-un has ordered factories to make more missiles in 2026. Express News is reporting that North Korea has fired long-range strategic cruise missiles into the sea to test the country's nuclear deterrence. The Korean Central News Agency said that the missile launches occurred off the country's west coast on Sunday, December 28. Kim Jong-un noted that testing the reliability of the country's nuclear deterrence and demonstrating its might are just a responsible exercise of the right to self-defense and war deterrence. UN Security Council resolutions prohibit North Korea from launches involving its huge stockpile of ballistic missiles. The country's cruise missile tests are not banned, but do pose a threat to the U.S. and South Korea. The Kremlin has claimed that Ukraine attempted to attack Putin's residence in a long-range drone attack hours after President Trump hailed progress in peace talks. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Monday that Kyiv had attempted to attack President Putin's remote retreat in the Novgorod region, and so Moscow's negotiating position would change. He said such reckless actions will not go unanswered, adding that the attack involved 91 long-range drones. Zelensky has denied the claims, calling them lies. It was not immediately clear if Putin was in the residence at the time. The attempted attack comes as the warring countries edge closer to signing a peace deal after almost 4 years of conflict. Trump on Sunday celebrated the success of his highly anticipated peace talks with Zelensky, revealing that they are very close to striking an agreement on all but one or two thorny issues. Well, now, apparently, that has changed. In the meantime, Russia's cutting-edge nuclear-capable Oreshnik hypersonic missile system has entered service in Belarus. In a statement on Tuesday, the ministry said the medium-range system has officially assumed combat duty. It also released the first-ever official footage of the system, showing its delivery and installation in Belarus. The ministry noted that all conditions for combat duty and accommodation of Russian personnel were prepared in advance in Belarus. The intermediate-range missile system could reach Britain in just 11 minutes. This is a development that bolsters the Kremlin's ability to deliver missiles across Europe. The Daily Mail's reporting that President Trump appeared to give nonchalant confirmation of the first U.S. land strike in Venezuela. The president said that the Christmas Eve strike was on a facility where the ship comes from, seemingly referencing the location of the vessels that the U.S. military has been targeting in the Caribbean and Atlantic over the last 3 months. The president has been saying since late November that the U.S. is shifting away from maritime attacks on the boats and will soon be conducting land strikes in Venezuela. And in our own hemisphere, Russia is planting its flag. Breitbart reported that the Venezuelan regime flaunted Russian support with a Putin letter to Maduro. Just like the China-Cuba military drills, this is an adversary setting up shop in Latin America. What's happening with Russia right now is downright explosive. There's no other way to say it. And hopefully cooler heads will prevail. But then you have the United States, Taiwan, and China. China is furious with the United States right now for Venezuela and the weapons package to Taiwan. And they have threatened over and over again that they will go into Taiwan if by force, if they have to. So is that going to lead the United States into another war? Hopefully not. But it does lead me to my next topic. Israel, Iran, and the United States. President Trump has warned the Iranian president to stop building up their weapons, otherwise he's going to go back in there. President Trump warned that he's prepared to support Israeli strikes on Iran if it continues to build up its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Before his meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday to discuss the next phase of the plan to rebuild Gaza, President Trump said that Israel is poised to strike fast if Iran continues to build up its military programs. He told reporters, "Now I hear that Iran is trying to build up again, and if they are, we have to knock them down. We'll knock the blank out of them. But hopefully that's not happening. I heard Iran wants to make a deal. If they want to make a deal, that's much smarter." Israeli officials have expressed concern recently about Iran rebuilding its long-range missile capabilities. Meanwhile, Iran launched a fresh round of ballistic missile tests on Monday, 6 months after its 12-day war with Israel, leading officials from the Jewish state to warn the Trump administration that Iran may be rehearsing another attack. The Israeli Prime Minister said his government was aware that Iran is conducting the military exercises and that they are monitoring it and making the necessary preparations. Speaking to Iranian state media, the president of Iran claimed that Western powers want to bring Iran to its knees. He also stated that Iran is stronger today than it was in June, when Israel launched its first strikes as part of the 12-day war. He said, "In my opinion, we are at total war with the United States, Israel, and Europe. They want to bring our country to its knees." Prophecy News Watch headlines it perfectly. Preparing to stand alone. Israel's strategic and prophetic shift. Breitbart reports the detail. Israel announced a $110 billion plan to build an independent arms industry to reduce dependency on allies. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is looking at the last 2 years, where supplies were slowed and diplomatic pressure was applied. And he is saying, never again. This 10-year plan is designed to make Israel self-sufficient in ammunition, missiles, and heavy armor. Prophetically, this is huge. The prophets tell us of a time when all nations gather against Jerusalem. Israel prepares for a future where Washington, London, and Berlin might not answer the phone. And the isolation is already growing diplomatically. The Times of Israel reports that 21 countries signed a statement condemning Israel's recognition of Somaliland. Interestingly, the Abraham Accords nations abstained, showing a fracture in the Middle East. But the pressure is mounting. Even neighbors are getting hostile. The Jerusalem Post reports that Turkey is attempting to deploy radars within Syria. Erdogan is literally setting up eyes and ears on Israel's border. Now, with that on the table, President Trump has announced that he may sell F-35s to Turkey. The United States booted Turkey from deployment of the F-35s, a top-of-the-line stealth plane, in 2019 after the NATO ally went ahead with purchases of missile defenses from Russia. Trump, however, has warm relations with the Turkish president, despite Erdogan and Netanyahu's relationship. Now, asked about the potential for conflict between Israel and Turkey, President Trump called Erdogan a very good friend. He said, "I promise they'll never use them on Israel. We're not going to have a problem." Don't you all think that President Trump needs to read the book of Ezekiel, specifically chapters 38 and 39? I'll just leave that right there. But anyway, he's going to sell these F-35s to Turkey, it's looking like. I know it might seem right now that the world is literally spinning out of control, but it's not. We're actually watching prophecy come to pass right before our very eyes. Jesus told us that we would see these things before they happened, so that when they happened, we would believe. So the wars and rumors of wars, nation rising up against nation, kingdom against kingdom, what's happening in Israel, all a part of prophecy. But with that said, those are your headlines for today. I'd love to get your thoughts, so please do leave me a comment below. Also, when you have some time, come and visit me on my social media pages, as well as my website at www.cww7news.com. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Have a very, very happy new year out there. We won't be back here until Friday for our Daniel series, so stay tuned for that. But be safe out there, you guys, this holiday. We're hearing a lot of things right now, so just be safe. And until next time, God bless.